I do, but I'm holding it until we get, yeah. All right, officially, welcome to week 3. All right, so we're going over the components of fitness or the genres right now. I'm not sure if it's spelled that good. Doesn't matter. All right, call it out.
Balance.
Balance, what'd you say, Sarah?
Mobility.
Yep. Strength. Strength.
Flexibility.
Same thing as mobility. Same idea as mobility, but not the same. We'll go back and define those.
Endurance.
Endurance, yep.
Speed, which we were trying to do today.
There's half of them.
Power.
How
Coordination.
nice.
Accuracy.
Accuracy. 8. 2 more.
Agility.
Nice. That's a tricky one to remember. Come on. One more. Today was a big kind of that workout too.
Yeah, strength.
Remember the fight gone bad workout? Stamina, baby. Cool. All right, let's go through and talk about just key characteristics of each one again. We'll start off with balance there. What do you guys remember about balance?
Don't fall. Being able to keep your center of gravity. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
Like,
so that's a good part of it. Anybody else? So this one, I would say balance is secondary to strength. So I would say balance is just like the ability to stabilize. Okay, the ability to stabilize. And we said that could be, well, for like the locomotive stuff, that requires a little bit of balance through the split stance. So it can be single leg, single arm, the ability to stabilize unilaterally, maybe. And remember, balance, the ability to stabilize, I think that's kind of like secondary to strength. If you don't have enough strength in like your smaller accessory muscles, those ones aren't going to be able to help you stabilize. So I think strength is very predictive of balance as well. Next one up, mobility. We want to take a brave attempt at defining mobility. So mobility is under load, like the amount that you can do. Like I would consider that like an active range of motion, where flexibility is more of like a passive range of motion. So flexibility would be like sit and reach. I'm not under load, and I'm just saying how much I can stretch my hamstrings. Mobility would be like how much do my hamstrings give me in my back squat. All right. So I would say mobility is a little bit more active. And then flexibility, more passive. All of those regarding to our ranges of motion. Strength. How much do you bench?
Yeah.
There's 3 different kinds of strength. Let's try to just recall those.
Relative.
Yep.
Functional.
Yep.
absolute.
Absolutely. Cool. So strength is just all about the weights. Endurance. Yep. The full name of this one is cardiovascular endurance. So this relates to the amount of oxygen that your body can utilize for energy production. Typically, the defining characteristic of endurance is usually time lapses of like at least 8 or 10 minutes. 10 minutes is probably a little bit more standardized, but 8, you can make arguments for either one. So longer time domains. Let's skip down to stamina right now. We talked about strength, endurance. So strength is like, your how much weight you can move. Endurance is your ability to utilize oxygen. What is stamina?
That's a. Go ahead.
Yeah.
That must be.
Yep, the ability to buffer like that lactic acid buildup. I would also say that a defining characteristic of stamina is going to be our mental toughness, because I think a lot of people will quit sooner mentally than what their body is actually capable of buffering. Cool, so now we'll go to speed. What up, Henry?
Oh, sorry, Sensei.
Let's see.
You're gonna have to cut it.
Yes. Here's a little copy of the week 2 notes.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to that. All right, so we're just going through and kind of recapping each of the different levels. And so week 1, we did the components of fitness, and that's what I was considering like the genres. And then last week we talked about the pillars of human movement, which are like the movement types. And then this week we'll go into the variables of movement intensity, and then just kind of going through and talking about each one. Work through endurance and stamina. So speed.
How fast can you?
Yep. Power. How did that one vary from strength?
How quickly you can, like how fast you can move the weight.
Yep. How quickly the weight moves. Yep. Kind of like the acceleration, I think, is where power stems from. Tell me some defining characteristics of power-based movements. Chuck, what were we just talking about before class? About even though you're not working as long, you're doing what?
Wear myself out quicker.
Definitely. Remember you talked about real high intensity?
And lower reps.
Yep, lower reps. So like low rep scheme, short duration, but real high intensity. That's the power. And typically, the power exercises, if you are externally loaded, those weights are going to be relatively lower than your highest levels of absolute strength, because as the weights get heavier and heavier, you naturally can't accelerate them quite as quickly. So power, low reps, high intensity, usually lower weights. Coordination. And find himself. Let's move on. Accuracy.
Like how controlled you are with whatever it is you're doing. I think of that as like, good form and
Precision of
Yes.
movement. I think.
that's like.
I think accuracy and coordination tie in together pretty closely. I think accuracy is kind of where you land up, and coordination is probably like how you get there. Agility. Big on that one. The ability to start, stop, and change directions. And then we talked about stamina, just your ability to buffer. Cool. All right, now we'll get into the types of movements, or the pillars of human movement. Everybody with week 2 notes, got a little cheat sheet here. Call those out real quick.
Little function.
Nice.
Set up its own reload.
Level changes.
Yep, get them in order. Nice.
Fish bowl.
And then last one.
Bowel moving. It's gotta be the 5th one. But, rotation.
The rock.
You almost wrote it.
Nice. All right, so remember locomotive, usually unilateral. Level change, this is just flexion and extension through our ankles, knees, and hips. That's where we get a lot of our squat variations and deadlifts, hip hinges. Push pull, that's a push is anything that our hand leaves our body, and a pull is anything that it comes to. And they're combined because while one pushes, the other pulls. And then rotation, we talked a lot about that X pattern coming across our body as our upper body pushes and pulls and our lower body counterbalances. All right, so that's how human movement is broken down. Now we'll hop on into the variables of movement intensity. I think there's 7 of them. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Don't know what I'm talking about. Let's just do like a little open brainstorm real quick and think which ones seem obvious. Members probably got a little bit of an upper hand here and experienced some of them before. Keys on this one is to not overthink it. Keep it as simple as you can. Remember, these are just principles that can be applied to any and every exercise. Variables of intensity. Yep. What makes exercises harder or easier?
Eccentric, concentric,
Speed. Yeah. Yep.
Increase
Volume.
Volumes. Yep.
Yeah.
Was there another one in there?
increase weight. Okay.
External load. Yep. Got the easy one. But oddly, nobody ever thinks of the weight.
Brandon. It's obvious.
Nice.
This
Yeah,
probably isn't one, but it is for me. Time pressure.
yeah,
This
time.
amount in like.
Time and
this
duration.
Reps and this
Yeah,
amount
it
of time.
is. It is. Good job. Nice. 3 more. What do you think?
Time is a time of day, as well.
That's true.
Is power one or acceleration?
You didn't want that.
Let's see.
Power would say that's what they should do.
I mean, but it's like,
Power. I think that'd probably be under speed,
Okay.
like the speed of the movement. And then Samuel was, you were right on track too about the different muscle contractions. There was the isometric, the concentric, and it's eccentric too, through each of the 3 different phases.
But form?
What's that?
Form?
Real close. Tell me about it a little bit more. Tether it out a little bit more. You're right there.
maybe position.
Okay.
Real close. Keep coming.
Okay.
Keep coming.
How many different parts of me does it take to pull it off? Like I really like. How complicated is it what we're being asked to do? As far as form and.
Yeah, you're right there. You guys are close.
I don't know how to explain, like how much brain power do I have to put into making this happen?
I hear you.
You're saying mind muscle connection.
We're trying.
Yeah, you guys are thinking. I'm liking it. Give these guys some more time to think.
Okay, all right.
I've got
work
another
harder.
one, environment. Like temperature, conditions,
Yeah.
humidity, that all affects.
External conditions. That's not one that I would really have before, but I'll give you number 8.
I'll tell you what else makes a difference. The energy and attitude in the room.
Now your mindset about it.
Nutrition.
What'd you say?
So your nutrition.
Yeah.
And your fueling and preparation.
All right, let's think, that's what good.
Come on, Sarah. Think about the weightlifting class. Whenever we kind of break down the movements, what what are we, expanding or increasing?
Well, the ramp split then.
What'd you say, Chuck?
Range of motion?
Yes. Yep. So I was asking you, like, when we start just the power position and just go there and then go to the hinge and do a little bit more. Every time you increase that range of motion through it. Same thing through, like, if you guys were doing a deadlift from the floor all the way to lockout, or a rack pull is like where you start kind of like at your knee height and just do the top half. You can move way more weight just on the top half than you can all the way from the bottom. Same thing to like the isometric kind of exercise. Maybe this is what you were saying, that if you are just holding, you can do way heavier weights because there's no movement. So like an isometric would be like a zero range of motion, other than just like a little bit. Range of motion. Nice. Two more. Gonna take a physics guy to get one. And then for our members, think about what we're changing every time we do our one arm lockouts.
What's that?
Balance.
So that's.
Yeah, it's going along those lines, yeah. Your base of support. So the more points of contact you have, the wider base you have, the more stability you have. Every time we're on all fours and then we go hand to shoulder, we go from 4 points of contact to 3. So your base of support now is a little bit less stable. So it requires more, core and hip stability as you do that. Yeah, base of support. So also we talked about base width. The wider your feet are, the more stability you have. If you start to come in closer, you're not as stable, or you're not split, or oh my goodness, it could have been the coffee. Could have been the coffee.
So the points of contact?
Base of support, yeah. But it's so base of support is points of contact and like your base width to the surface area, like where all, like, what's the area of all those points of contact? The smaller it is, the less stability, the bigger it is, more stability you got. All right.
On your physics term, is it momentum?
Ooh.
It's understood.
I think it would be under speed, and speed and volume would probably indicate the momentum. An example of this one would be like when we do the anti-rotation presses. And we got this fan out here and we're in close versus away from us.
The resistance for the
So like how much the band would be pulling would still be external load. Because external load is just like external resistance. But real close. So like the anti-rotation press is an example, or if you do push-ups from elevated or push-ups from the ground, that changes this area.
It's not stress, it's
In that direction, yeah.
force.
Kind of. Your force is affected by it.
Know what your term is.
Yeah, the lever arm, or like the momentum arm. Or moment arm, I think is what it technically is. Yeah, so the leverage. Lever arm is what this one's defined as. All right, now you guys can have the week 3 notes because now they're all on there. Good thing today. I like seeing those gears get grinded a little bit.
Be right. You gonna add my equal on there too?
You can. External conditions. Those are definitely a variable of movement intensity on Murphy. Murphy Monday on Memorial Day. It's hot. It's a brutal workout. Emery, have you worked with us before?
No.
You need to. I bet Travis could do it.
But he would, he tried.
Do it modified. Some people half Murph.
Yeah. I would,
You just throw a dog it.
yeah. I like training.
Getting big. All right. Good job on these. So got all these variables of movement intensity, and now these are all the dials that are present in every single exercise, whether we're back squatting, lunging, doing push-ups or bench press or pull-ups or snatches and cleans. These are all present in every exercise that we have. All right, so now let's talk about each one and break them down and talk about what turning those dials each way does. So we talked about speed a little bit before. Samuel said that there's the 3 different contractions. There's the concentric, which for a bicep curl is like where the work is being done, you know, where you're coming to, where you're lifting it. The isometric is holding either at the top or any point along. Isometric just indicates that no movement is happening. The muscle is not shortening or lengthening. It's just staying the same. So concentric is shortening, isometric is holding, and then eccentric is when the muscle is lengthening or, you know, going back down. Speed is an interesting one because if you do something faster, it requires more force production, and that's arguably harder. But if you slow something way down or make it an isometric where you're not moving, that makes it way harder sometimes too. So speed is the trickster, because, you know, kind of like happy medium. Like if it was a 1 to 10 dial, like 4 to 6 is like a really comfortable speed that I think a lot of people just kind of naturally work through somewhere happy medium. If you start slowing it down on the low side of that, you know, that's probably into the red zone, and then above that is another red zone. Think of it like that. Volume, this is just your sets and reps, the total amount of work that you do on the day, whether you do a couple of sets at high reps or a few sets at low reps, just the amount that you're doing total. External load, this one can be, what do you think on this one? You can technically go less than 0 on external load. You guys understand why that may be?
Like the band, using the bands on the pull-ups.
For assistance, yep. Or like anytime you TRX, like if you're doing a TRX squat and you kind of get a little hand assistance right here, taking a little load off. So you're doing body weight, but then you're even doing a little assistance too, where you're taking a little bit of the load out of the equation. Really good for anybody with a little bit of knee pain or anything like that. You could even take external load off in the push-ups by members from long ago, Chuck and Kim. If you guys remember where we used to have a heavy band set up kind of low in the squat racks, and we do it like right around your waist and get a little assistance off of the push-ups too. That was a good way to train. So external load, you can go 0 and just do body weight. You can turn it way up and go heavy, 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 or you can turn it down a little past 0 and give some extra assistance even. Time and duration. This one's a trickster too, just like speed. Because if your volume stays the same, but you turn your time down, if you make it, you got to do the same volume, but you give one person 20 minutes and you give another person 15. The person that only gets 15 minutes that has to go through and do everything faster, that's going to be harder. So speed, volume, and time, those are highly correlated. Usually when you turn one, it will kind of turn another one with it. Does that make sense? They're connected a little bit. Not all of these are completely independent of one another. So sometimes the more time you give, you know, you can go through everything a little bit slower. But also, if you increase your time, you may also increase your volume. If your volume's not set, you may do a lot more work over a longer time, obviously. All right, so time, volume, and speed are highly closely correlated, but different. Range of motion, we talked about this one. The bigger range of motion that you require, the more intense it is. That one's a really black and white. The less range of motion you do, commonly, you can do a lot higher external load. It's all the ego lifts when the guys load the back squats and do the quarter squat and then slam it back down into the rack. Not that I see anybody do that. All right. Base of support, we already broke that one down a little bit, just going to points of contact and then your base width. So the more points of contact you have, the more stability you have. So easy one on this one to compare is think bilateral squat versus single leg squat. All right, points of contact there. Even how much foot you have on the ground. If I'm doing a bilateral squat here, and maybe I just start kind of doing single leg squat progressions, and maybe I just go to just a toe tap. Technically, my surface area is now smaller. Yep, so even just going full foot to little foot there. And that point right there, your points of contact is kind of makes it obvious when people are doing back squats or deadlifts or anything and they lose their heels off the ground. You just majorly decrease your stability and lose a lot of potential for your power and strength production in there. So biggest base of support and the most stability you have, the highest levels of strength to be expressed. That's why we don't do no circus acts.
Maybe get those benches.
Get you a climbing rope though.
Needs some cash, I'm a little fearful for vendors on that.
We'll just get a little wooden outright and just let them climb it in the grass right there behind the building.
We could always strap them in. If they lose their grip, they would still be strapped in.
Yeah, you just.
Have a little pulley system from
Yeah.
above.
Yeah, well, it's just gonna.
Little belay and harness. All right. Everybody good on base of support? Points of contact and width. All right, lever arm. So think of lever arm is the distance the masses from your center of mass. So if you have an external load or resistance from something, like we talked about this anti-rotation press here, whenever it's in here, you guys can hold this really tight to your body. But the further away it gets, the more those hips want to start to twist, or maybe those hands get pulled off center a little bit. So that's when the lever arm increases. And then we talked about the elevated push-ups as well. Let's see. That seems like a longer person. This is just illustrative purposes. So the lever arm and an elevated push-up can be seen from, so the distance that you're working away is from your hands to your toes. And because it's like that of a triangle, this would be your body, but this is like the working distance right here. It's a little bit shorter than whenever you're just all the way down. Put that out there instead. So that's this way. The lever arm is a lot shorter, so you don't have to have as much core strength to hold that straight position, or do you have to have as much upper body strength because you get more load going down into your feet, so it takes a lot off your upper body there. Does everybody understand the lever arm? Another way that we can see this one, I'd like to say this is important, is when we're deadlifting. When we're deadlifting and we got that bar out in front of us, if we're doing straight bar, we always say about the bar, we want to keep that in as close to us as we can. The further you get away, the harder it gets to lift from you. You can see it real easy in the resistance bands, how quickly it gets harder as you go away, you're doing the exact same thing whenever that bar is out of the way from us as we deadlift. So keeping it close and letting that bar drag up those shins, that's love. Love hate relationship. And then Chuck, you want to tell us about external conditions?
Sure. So, heat and humidity, I think makes the
Yep.
workout harder. Incline, or if it's real cold too, that might affect you, so,
Up or down?
Yeah.
Yep,
It's a dial, you know, as you're talking about.
Thermostat.
yep.
And he brought up a good point, like how do our team members prepare for workout? Are you hydrated well? Do you fuel well? Do you get gassed in the middle because you're.
Internal conditions.
Yeah, yeah. You hear a lot of people that pick out go, oh, you know,
I didn't see.
I didn't eat lunch, I haven't drank good today, or, I mean, I don't know if those are excuses or if those are real things, but for whatever reason, they are pooping out. Sometimes it's me.
Two new variables in movement intensity. Yeah. Thanks for learning with me. All right, now let's pick some exercises and we'll just kind of figure out where all of these variables show up and how we can turn those dials up or down for just a couple of movements, and then we'll see where we're at after that. All right, somebody pick an exercise, any exercise.
Kind of swings.
Baby swings.
We can get this one.
All right. Kettlebell swings, looking for speed. Man, I think kettlebell swings probably have one appropriate speed to be done. If you do, yeah, real smooth, kind of in that 4 to 6 range. Because if you go real slow, you can't. Kettlebell swings require momentum, so you have to have enough speed to have sufficient momentum. And one thing that you'll see in the swings too is that people will be real arm dominant. Check this out. You can tell a lot just about the way that the kettlebell swing looks. This might look like a good swing to you guys. Like hips are moving pretty good, but it's just a little bit slow. And if you notice, the kettlebell stays kind of looking down towards the ground. So that's indicated that the shoulders are really super dominant in it. If the hips are being dominant, the kettlebell will kind of look out in front of them as they go. So it completely shifts just what the kettlebell is telling you, how the momentum is being created. If it's hip dominant.
That's like a very weak shoulders. Slower.
Yeah, depending on what you're aiming for, you could. Yep. All right, so speed, probably the middle range right there would be most appropriate where you could change that. And then volume could go up or down. External load, same thing, up or down on that one.
Range of motion.
Yeah, range of motion. What would you change about range of motion?
How high you go.
Yeah, your finish
I
height.
mean, sometimes you go kick past there versus here.
I think that's technically 2 different variations of the kettlebell swing. There's like the American kettlebell swing and then the Russian kettlebell swing. And I don't remember which one finishes where.
You know our stuff.
I hope America finishes higher. Yeah, so you can change range of motion on the kettlebell swing and finish position. Base of support. Technically, you could probably do like a little bit of a stagger stance. I've seen people do like some stagger stance kettlebell swings like this before, so single hip exercises, but you see a lot more of the functional strength people doing a bunch of the goofy single legs. I like doing lunge variations, but if you're doing strength training exercises, I feel like you should probably approach just get stronger. Just try to lift a heavier weight as opposed to. Anyways. All right, so we got range of motion. What, yeah, and this is time and duration. We skipped over this one. Sometimes you can just set a certain time for the exercises and do them for 20 or 30 seconds as opposed to a certain volume. I think that's a fun variable to change around too for people. If you're just in a habit of constantly going to the gym and doing like 3 sets of 10, pretty classic exercise. You know, sometimes maybe if you just do 3 sets for 20 or 30 seconds, you seem like you're getting the same number of sets in, but maybe you get in a higher volume or something like that.
You can also challenge yourself that way too.
Yeah, as you're coming back to see if you can get like another set.
And I got whatever, 10 in and 20, can I get 12 in?
Mm-hmm. All right, kettlebell swings on the lever arm. I think that's just going to be indicated by
How long your arms are.
their arm length.
Can
I
you
think-
move your elbows at any time?
I think the appropriate way for the kettlebell swing to go is you want it to go like in the little triangle gap right here. The reason I don't really like the kettlebell to go below the knees is because once people start to reach down there, assuming kind of like standard arm length, I guess, but a lot of people tend to round through their low back to get a little bit lower through it too. So if people say high and tight, they're against them just like right below their crotch and that kettlebell coming right about through the knee height. Usually high and tight allows people to stay pretty neutral through there. But I would say aim for, you know, just like that tight position. But longer arms, I guess, to round you over a little bit more.
And if your arms are too short, you're gonna feel that.
Yeah.
All right, let's do another exercise. Variables of intensity. Back squat. All right, starting off on the speed on the back squats. How would you guys change it? Slow it down, and what would that do?
I mean, if you're heavy weight on the back squat, and you slow it down, it's gonna change the intensity.
Higher.
Yes.
Yep, higher intensity. And then if we turn the speed up.
Power, more power.
More power, a little bit higher intensity. Like I said, volume and external load will be highly correlated together in like these strength exercises. So if you turn volume down, either you're likely trying to go down for like a little bit of like a taper off, or lower volume, you can go higher on the external load. So considering like your goal of each exercise, or who's in front of you, or even how you're feeling, if you know that man, my low back's a little bit achy today, maybe you just take a little bit of external load off and still try to prioritize maximizing your range of motion of what you're able to move through. So considering your goals will be real indicative of how you want to try to change all these too. Range of motion on a back squat. What's a different type of exercise that we could decrease the range of motion on a back squat? You know?
I would say like doing a box squat, coming down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Box squat. That's good.
Okay.
Increasing our range of motion. I think a lot of people struggle with just like how far down to finish. So if you're trying to, again, if you're trying to maximize range of motion, that's likely going to be decreasing the amount of external load that you use for the back squat. Base of support. Again, points of contact, I wouldn't really recommend loading up real heavy on any sort of back squat or front squat. Although I did post a circuit act one time. I did a front squat, single leg squat.
Should be ashamed.
I was kind of impressed that I was able to do it, but I would recommend it. Let's see. What did we talk about for the back squat? What was really important relating to our base of support?
Keeping heels on the ground.
Yeah, whole foot contact. Now, changing the lever arm on the back squats. How do you think we could do that? And again, it would kind of change the terminology of the exercise a little bit.
Are you talking like doing a front squat versus doing a back squat?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so. And a back squat, that bar is pretty right over our center of mass. And then when we shift it to the front squat, it does shift out in front of us a little bit. So even though it's still in contact with our body, it's still slightly further away. And then if we did one more, if we took the bar a little bit further away, what would the other exercise be? We do them a lot. Overhead squat, because now the bar's the furthest distance away from our center of mass because our arms are extended. So back squat to front squat a little bit further, but then the front squat to the overhead, that's the biggest variable distance there. Cool. Everybody got all those? Let's see. All right, I think I had mentioned this before. It's easy for people to think about how to make exercises harder, but I think in the name of just being consistent, you will serve yourself the best. And then if you're ever leading or encouraging anybody else by making the exercises easier, it's always easier to make them harder. But you know, if you only know how to make exercises harder, if you come into the gym on a down day and you don't know how to move the other direction, you're going to be probably eventually discouraged from, you know, what your capabilities are. So, you know, minimum effective dose is what keeps us in the game. So always knowing how to regress the exercises and make them easier, you'll just be in the game for a lot longer.
I think that's one of the advantages that we have for members here is, I hear this over and over again when I work with new members is, you know, I was scared to come in. I knew I didn't have a lot of capabilities, didn't know what I was doing, but they really met me where I was and helped me adapt to where I was until I could move forward and get stronger.
Yep.
Or flexible or whatever the case may be. So that's what you hear other people talk about, which I think is a good thing. We don't want to keep them there. Hopefully, you know, that's not the beginning and end point, but at least we're willing to go, okay, look, we can back you up a little bit.
Gym's a scary place to come to.
Yeah.
So weird how we have like all these perceptions, but I do think this gym is a lot different than most.
I mean, compare it to, I just know that others do, and that's what you hear.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure you feel bad, so I just told me that from somebody who was that. I'd have to think, but they were like, you know, this just feels different. You're not made to feel less than.
Good. Let's see, next on the radar, going over some more specific to coaching cues and tactics. If you're working with somebody, and there's three main ways to go through and cue movement. The first way to cue movement is just verbal, just barking orders at somebody. Can assault them with 12 different cues. Ideally, try to keep it simple. I know sometimes I was really bad about this whenever I came out of college and I had my fancy degree and knew all my fancy kinesiology terms and all the terminology, and I feel like I just word vomited on my members and just told them. I just wanted to make them know how smart I was, you know? I like that. I just paid a lot for my degree. So keeping it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. really the less verbal instructions that you can give, the better, especially when people are coming in and like just getting started to it, or like if you're getting a roommate that's going into it and just doesn't have any idea what they're doing, just like probably the less you can say, the better, they won't have as much to process or consider. Then you can lead by doing visual. This is why it's real important whenever we go through and lead a session. Ideally, standard process is to go through and describe everything verbally and give them the lay of the land. And then as you get into the workout right before you go through and do it, then we give them a visual cue. These are the 1, 2, or 3 points of performance to consider. Hopefully give them a good demonstration. My favorite coaching experience is when I've taken somebody through the foundations program. And we're going through and doing like the core activation exercise. I'll get down and lay on the ground and do some dead bugs, kind of show them. And I'll be like, all right, you can do it. I'll just like get up and stand. They'll wait for me to move from my spot so that they can do it. Right where I demonstrated it. So be careful. It's like raising little kids when you have members that are imitating it so eagerly. So even when you're demonstrating an exercise, don't skimp on it. If you're saying go ahead and do an overhead squat, don't demo your overhead squat to there. And this is one thing that Joanne does really well at, not the overhead squat, because she can't demonstrate it fully. She knows the importance of, hey, they need to see exactly what standard is. She will have somebody else from class, say Glenn or somebody that is in, and she'll say, you demo this, and then she'll kind of talk through it as they go through and do. But that visual is where we get a lot. Just like even when you're communicating with people, a lot of it is just through body language and tone and delivery. All right, verbal, visual, and then the very last one is tactile. This is by touch. Now, for our purposes, usually we don't get real handsy with our members, hopefully, unless they're Chuck, I'll push it through. But the interesting thing about tactile touch is you don't want to touch actually where you would think to. So if you see somebody's backgrounding off, you wouldn't tell them to, well, I'll say this. That was just bad. Bad way to read it. Don't remember that. If you see somebody's knees collapsing in whenever they're squatting, you wouldn't want to touch the inside of their knees and say, hey, you wouldn't try to push them into the movement because you stimulate where they're moving to already. So if somebody's knees are collapsing in, counterintuitively, you would say, okay, move to my hands. And that way you give them something to push to. So you, like, just coaching principles in general, marriage principles in general, focus on complementing what you want to see done and replicated most often. If you are nagging and say, nah, don't do this, and this, gosh, okay, great. Anything good that I'm doing? So always get them to move where you want to. Hey, I really liked it when you drove your knees out to the side like that. So touch where you want the movement to go to. Easy enough? I think it's always easiest to imitate the visual, to demonstrate, and then use the verbal kind of pepper spraying in between, and then if necessary, go into the tactile methods after that. Cool? Nice. Dang. Ended a little bit early today, 8 minutes ahead of time. We did good through all that. So we went through and did all of the genres, all the components of fitness. Then we went down to the movement types and did the pillars of human movement. And then we went through and talked about changing all the variables of movement intensity on each one. And then these are the 3 strategies to get them to make those changes. And now you know. Was this Blake super short show? What questions you guys got? Any? Good. Consider my job done here. Let's see. Next week, last week of the month, we will have, we'll go through and talk a little bit of shop about our training philosophy and some things that we like to prioritize. I think we may have touched on some of this stuff on week 1, and then we'll go through and talk a little bit more about the purpose of the warm-up and just a little bit, I would say, movement assessment from the warm-up. We'll go through and break down all of our dynamic flexibility exercises and talk about what we're looking for in each exercise, what you see commonly, and then assumptions that you can draw from those. You can't always necessarily diagnose and say, this is exactly what's happening, but you can usually narrow it down to 1 or 2 things. And then those indicators, we'll talk a little bit more about, how you may consider progressing or regressing some of the exercises so that you set them up for success. If you take early assessments just when they're going through and doing the warm-up exercises, you can judge a book pretty closely by its cover and some of the early indicators that you're seeing. And, on the fly, make some adjustments to your workout, especially early on whenever you first start working with somebody, kind of just getting to know. Yeah, so we'll get into all that next week. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for thinking with me today. I enjoyed your guys' creative answers. And the 2